Stupid duck.
Come a little closer and lend me your ears. Don't worry, you keep yours while I keep mine.
In each episode, we'll dig into the major stories, uncover the truth, and retrieve gems from Yada's blog. We'll discuss what's right, bark about what's wrong, wag our tails at the thrill of discovery, and take you on adventures through the exciting world we live in today.
So, fasten your curiosity leash and get ready.
Right then, coming to you with another episode of the Yada's Vlog on a Blog. Tomorrow's news, disseminated today. Let's dive in.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. As you probably heard in the preliminaries before the show, I was able to save Wookie from the embarrassment of wearing a duck hat, and Leia has gotten him a diamond-studded choker. So I know it's a big thing for influencers to wear a lot of bling, but it seemed like a little much.
Yeah, Wookie doesn't need that. Absolutely. He influences just as he is.
He is. It's some people just don't need to be any different than they are. Hello, Roger. How are you this morning?
Very, very, very good, John. How you doing today?
Good. We'll jump right in. Here is a panel. I'm sure glad they got a panel. So we had three different opinions here. And this panel is announcing that Iran sees this is a holy war. I mean, that's like saying, I think that that big bright thing in the sky is the sun. What was your first clue, Sherlock? I mean, it's the Islamic Republic of Iran. It's the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. He is the Ayatollah. I mean, what was your first clue? That they reference Allah, that they speak of jihad, that they talk about Israel and the United States being infidels. I mean, where did you get your clues? Because this is really outstanding journalistic reporting. So I'm really glad that.
Is this a modern day?
Is
this a modern day crusade?
Yeah, the modern day crusade, I guess, is to stop them. So that's like you saying, gentlemen, we better strap on our gear because that's water we're going into today.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to be on our game if we're going to outperform the whizzes here. I think this is Newsmax. Nice job.
Yeah.
Nice job. Yeah. Nice job. Very impressive. Okay. So this is in terms. He says that he was talking about the fact that he was trying to explain why Iran was at war again within the region, and he says, well, we hit them pretty hard, we attacked them, and so it's natural that they would fight back. We're having some real focus issues, Rich, on our little cam here. So and somebody says, well, I thought we were in a ceasefire. Why did you attack them? Well, Trump says, well, ceasefire is when you're shooting at a more moderate manner.
Yes. They're only defensive attacks during a ceasefire, right? They are self-defense attacks during a ceasefire.
You go halfway around the world for a defensive attack. I mean, my question would be, what part of cease do you not understand? Cease seems like a pretty simple concept to me.
I think Trump called them offensive defensive strikes.
Well, they're all offensive. We'll agree with that. Well,
I think we all know
last time I checked, you could probably look it up. And today, people don't have dictionaries anymore; they just Google it on their phone. But cease does mean to stop, to refrain.
Well, I think we know from the Donald's behavior that he doesn't do the word no very well. I mean, as a rapist, you don't understand what no means. So
no, you don't. Yeah, it's true. Sometimes he just looks like such a doofus. You'd say, how could that doofus be Satan? But he really is. And, and occasionally he stumbles onto something that has merit. Trump says the U.S. is going to get Iran's enriched uranium in the future.
Mhm.
And I think he may be right.
Yeah, there's no
Just-
doubt.
It's just that no one's going to like the way it's delivered.
It'll
you know, there
be a
is a-
mushroom cloud.
Yeah, big mushroom cloud. I think everybody knows that because I've said it so many times, that I do spend my evening, which is fairly short at my age. I knock off in the office at about 7:00, and I spend between 7 and 9 o'clock typically watching YouTube videos, presentations of the subjects that I'm interested in. I happen to like astronomy and things that are about our cosmos and things, light, time, scientific kinds of things. But I also want to keep track of what's going on in Ukraine and Iran, because I have quite a history in both places and offering advice. And it's always interesting to stay in touch to see if your prognostications are holding true. And so the guy that's probably the single most cited expert, former CIA analyst on these subjects, came on a program last night, spur of the moment. And he says, I've only got 15 minutes. I've got a meeting to confirm all aspects of what we have just learned. And what we have learned is that Iran is resuming the war. And that they have stated emphatically via Pakistan to Marco Rubio, therefore to Trump, that they are resuming the war, that their 14-point plan, which was originally a 10-point plan, stands, and they are not negotiating off of it. And that you and I did a program on that 10-point plan. So people are curious as to what it says. It's total and complete surrender for the United States. And that we will cease negotiations now. We will not negotiate further. And that if the United States chooses not to accept that plan, we're going to detonate a nuclear bomb.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Now, when pressed, what he said is, so far, there were 4 parts of that communication to the United States, and the first 3 have already materialized. Only leaves the "will detonate a nuclear bomb" as the incompleted part. He said, so far, the source, every time the source has said that they were witness to a conversation in Pakistan pursuant to the United States and delivered to the United States, they have been correct. He said, I'm not going to name my source here, but, I do thousands of these programs, and I stand behind the information I'm given, and very seldom wrong. He says, what I do not know is whether or not it is because they finished the bombs that they have been working on, or if they were given the ability to detonate a bomb by Russia, China, or North Korea. But that is their statement. And we have talked about this on this program and prior to it for years now, that there was absolutely no reason for the Iranians to risk their entire country to refine uranium to 20%, which they had done, that physical purity, which you can't use it in any civilian purpose. Maximum you can use is 3 to 5% for a nuclear power plant, and they only have one nuclear power plant, and that power plant has never been for anything other than the daughter products are useful in creating bombs, because a country that floats on oil does not need expensive atoms to boil water, and that's what a nuclear power plant does. So, the people that say that Iran's not building a bomb, which was 99.9% of the voices out there, that they have no idea what they're talking about. That's irrational and nonsensical, and that would include, by the way, this particular expert who was amongst those saying such stupid things. And when you took it from 20% to 60%, that's 90% of the way through, both in time and energy and expertise to get it to the physical purity of 87% for a bomb of 235 uranium. And we also recognized that they had developed their own centrifuges and had not only buried their enrichment program, but that they had replicated it so that it wasn't just in 4 or 5 sites, it was in 40 sites, all underground, all out of the reach of the Americans. Everything Trump has said about destroying them and obliterating them is untrue. And it's not 1 or 2 sites. You cannot go and try to have a rescue mission again of Captain Uranium. You're familiar with that. We lost billions of dollars worth of aircraft and a total embarrassment. We claimed it was to retrieve a colonel. Colonels, by the way, do not fly radio ops in the back seat of F-15s. But nonetheless, it was a complete failed mission, and it's impossible anyway because the enriched uranium is not in one place. And what we have said is that once you get it to 60% fissile purity in a room smaller than this study that I'm in here, in fact, maybe even half the size of the study, you can put a cascade that can enrich that to the 87% fissile purity in a week's time. So Iran was always within a week of having a bomb.
Mm-hmm.
They had chosen not to have a bomb. It's the only reason they didn't have one. They had chosen to put themselves in a position where they could rapidly, but they didn't. So what I have said is that when United States and Israel attacked Iran less than a year ago, that was counterproductive. That rather than keeping Iran from having a bomb, it would assure that they do develop one. And then when America attacked Iran again, that this time it was catastrophic. Mm-hmm. That it would assure everything they were trying to preclude was now assured, and that Iran would have to be stupid. And we've not seen any stupidity out of Iran for not developing a bomb as a defensive measure. So it's quite possible that Iran just developed their bomb. But we also know that the North Koreans, with the help of the Chinese and the Russians, sent in a very large quantity in the hundreds of ballistic missiles into Iran. And there'd be no reason for the North Koreans, with the help of the Chinese and the Russians, who are absolutely interested in stopping the United States from destroying a very important economic partner of theirs, to include a nuclear warhead or 2 as part of that shipment.
Yeah.
And we talked about it. So I think it is likely. Now, so then the question becomes, first of all, was it actually part of the communication? And I'd say it's certainly feasible, to the point, I think, of being likely. The second would be delivery. Would the Iranians, who are very bright people, would they detonate a nuclear device in the mountains of Iran, deep underground, where it could be validated? Well, they now have a nuclear bomb. Mm-hmm. And then simultaneously shoot off an intercontinental ballistic missile, which they have, at some place that would be frighten the living bejesus out of the West, but with a conventional warhead on it, such that you could put together the pieces and say, well, it was a pretty clear message.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Would you do it that way? Or would you do it another way? Which is, since there's no forgiveness of a nation, even under these circumstances, or they would be justified of nuking Israel, that they attack the war machine that came to attack them, to destroy them, and that they put their nuclear bomb in a missile that they detonate over the U.S. fleet. Because that U.S. fleet is there to destroy them, has bombed them, and is a menace to them that would be entirely defensive, entirely justifiable, would you detonate your nuke above the U.S. fleet?
In a tactical type situation, yeah, absolutely. That is scary, scary.
And then what would the United States do? Because the United States is really not in a position that it can then start cascading nukes all over Iran. They start that, and they have ended life as we know it on the planet. So,
Right.
Even Satan is not likely to be that belligerent, right? It's early in that process. So, these are really extraordinary circumstances, and whether or not the communication was made as a 1, 2, 3, 4. We know that Iran has ended negotiations, even indirectly with the United States. We know that the war is back on. There was some pretty devastating attacks yesterday, and
Kuwait,
and Kuwait. It turns out, boy, talk about embarrassing. You know, the Kuwait City has a new airport. It happens to be right next to the U.S. military base there. The Iranians attacked the U.S. military base, but the airport's up in flames. Do you know why the airport is up in flames?
Mm-mm.
The Kuwaitis fired a Patriot missile at one of the incoming drones.
Oh my!
It crashed on their own airport.
Oh, wow!
Patriot
And the headline reads: Iran attacks Kuwaiti airport. Airport on fire. Oh my!
It's just like the United Arab Emirates when their oil refinery blew up and they last spat. It was a misfired U.S. missile because the U.S. panicked. The U.S. actually attacked civilian shipping, not Iranian fast boats, and it panicked and it started firing off missiles, and one of the missiles hit the UAE. We aren't just unable to defend. We are part of the problem. You know, the Kuwait actually downed 2 F-15s early in the war with Patriot systems.
Well, one of the stories
shot
I
at
read,
U.S. planes.
One of the stories I read said that one of the downed Kuwaiti the F-15s that the Kuwaitis downed was the same pilot that is Captain Iranium. I mean, who gets another bird after you're shot down once? You know what I'm saying? That the guy that was shot down over Iran was the same guy.
You know, first of all, there really is no Captain Uranium. You know that.
Yes, right. But
the U.S. did not go in and waste $1 billion worth of equipment trying to retrieve Captain Uranium
by listening to his heartbeat. Right?
Yeah, no, we were trying.
They were after the uranium.
We were trying to do an extraction mission of uranium from Isfahan. Is what we were trying to do, and it failed. So that was the cover-up story. Accidentally, the reason that Trump won't pull the trigger, and he has all those special forces, and he won't pull the trigger to let them invade an island or two, and he can, thump his chest and say, here we are, we successfully invaded, is he's panicked over the idea of the Iranians parading and starting a countdown of U.S. POWs. Like existed during the Carter administration, brought the Carter administration down. He's petrified that would occur and doesn't want to have to deal with it.
Because that's what would occur.
Well, that's of course what would occur, but
sure.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, is America going to get some enriched uranium from Iran? I'd say that the way America is going, quite possibly.
If you look at the way the war over there has progressed so far, it's settled into a kind of a tit for tat thing. An escalation here, a little escalation there, bringing it up. So a lot depends on the Iranians' mindset, the Persian mindset here. If they get to the point to where they feel that game is over, then it is going to happen. But as long as they feel they can play Trump a little bit long, string him out a little longer, they'll keep doing that.
Yeah, actually, well, that is correct. And it's the same situation with the Ukrainian war, which is why it's so stupid, is that the end of the world occurs if we continue to play either game. But the Iranians have been exceedingly thoughtful and actually moral in their response. There is not a single time in this war where Iran shot first. There's not a single Iranian escalation, not one. 100% of the time, the Iranians respond to Israeli or American provocation. 100% of the time, without exception. And they're notorious for doing that. And they'll say, if America is going to continue to do this, then this will be our response. They will actually say, this will be our response. You do this, we do that. And they have done that every time we have done this. So they do that because they realize that the war of public opinion is as vital as the kinetic war in their country. And they're pretty damn good at that the war of public opinion. Far better than the United States is at it. The other issue is that the kinetic war that the U.S. has launched against Iran has been completely ineffective. 70, according even to the U.S. military, and I think the numbers are actually higher than this, 70% of Iranians' missile supply and launchers have not yet been used, and that we have not destroyed any of their factories because they're underground and they're making missiles and drones at a prodigious pace. So Iran's not set back at all. Not in the Strait of Hormuz, not with their fast boats, not with their missiles, not with their drones, not with anything that they're using in this war. And the United States has proved inept at being able to deflect away from it. Even if the Iranians were to say, okay, if you pay us enough money, we'll open the Strait of Hormuz. How are they going to retrieve the mines? Because what the Iranians did is they essentially mined the channels that had been used in the Strait of Hormuz, forcing anybody that's going to sail the gauntlet to cruise right next to the Iranian coast, where they have total control. So there's all sorts of issues. Another issue that people just aren't talking about is that because futures of oil bent crude is right around $100 a barrel, there's two issues that people don't talk about. One is that it's at that number largely because the world has drawn down on its strategic reserves. The strategic reserves are now worldwide at an emergency level. There's no more drawing down on them. So when you can't draw down on the emergency reserves, then the only way to affect the supply is to pay more money for the oil. And so that's why Chevron and others have made announcements that it's their analysis that Brent crude is going to go upwards of $160 to $180 a barrel in the very near future, and that will happen in the next 30 days. The second thing that's really quite interesting is that benchmark that everybody talks about is not actually what gets paid for the oil. That's just a futures trading number.
Mm-hmm.
The actual settlement now is averaging $30 above that number.
Oh, wow.
So the average settlement is already in the $135 to $140 a barrel. So we're in a much bigger fix than people think we're in.
Well, if you look
Yeah.
back to the 70s, when they cut us off over there were lines at the filling stations a mile long.
Mm-hmm.
I think Carter was president, but
Mhm.
that just drew the game plan right there. The countries over there looked at that and they saw the Achilles heel that America has.
Yes. America's in a slightly different position now in that we have increased our extraction capability. And so America can extract about 80% of what it consumes. Now, there's a misnomer there in that our refineries can't refine what we extract. So we have to sell our oil and buy other oil. And in fact, we have to buy really crappy oil and sell really good oil for our refineries to work. So we are still the largest, well, not the largest, I think we're the second largest importer of oil, even though we are fairly neutral on oil overall. I think we import 20% more than we export, but we still have to import a lot because light crude is something our refineries can't process.
Wow. I mean, I'm just trying to work my head around $15 a gallon diesel fuel, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
oh yeah, for your tractors.
Yeah.
You know, as you know, I've been a pilot for years and own my own airplane, and the big cost in choosing if you're going to fly your airplane is Jet A, and the cost of Jet A. And when the cost of Jet A is, you know, $1.25 a gallon, you know, you can go fly here to there, and it ain't no big deal. You know, you're burning 50 bucks an hour in fuel, and it's you know, it's no big deal, and you're going really fast. So I mean, that's pretty efficient. But when it gets up above $5 a gallon of Jet A, you're really thinking about, you know, filling that the wings. That's a lot of money, man. Better clear out some room on your credit card. So it really does have a profound effect as to flying it, and you know, price of tickets and moving people around right now is way, way, way up, and it's about ready to double.
Oh, people living in the suburbs, I mean, just commuting back and forth, you know, it stops everything. The amount of food that gets into stores and things carried by diesel engines, you know, that price has to triple, you know. So yeah, it's
we've not even seen the tenth of what's going to happen as a result of this idiot's malfeasance in Iran. Oh boy, can you imagine how humbling it has to be for an egomaniac like this? Netanyahu says Trump will decide on return to full-scale action against Iran. In other words, Trump has decided, I can't play in Lebanon anymore. He's told me I can't play in Gaza anymore. He's told me that I can't play in Iran anymore, that I just have to be a good boy and sit in the corner. He's a vassal. Israel chose to hook its wagon to the great betrayer, to Rahab, to Satan in the flesh, and now they have to kowtow to him. I mean, it's worse than that because, of course, they're hated by the world for what they have done, and now their only ally is Satan, and they're played like a puppet. It's amazing how bad a situation they put themselves in.
And it's the complete opposite of what all the talking heads are saying, because everyone's talking about how Israel has drugged Trump into this war, how Israel is keeping the ceasefire from happening, how Israel. No, people. That's not how any of this works.
That's not how any of it works. And Israel, go ahead.
I guess Israel has kind of, over the past couple of decades, for sure, in the past few years, has really leaned heavily on American arms and munitions and jet aircraft and all that stuff to come in and defend themselves. So they've really created a little monster there that they can't let go of. And that monster is dictating the terms.
Yeah, and it's not a case where Israel is given a significant number of amount of this. Most of what Israel takes from the U.S., it buys, it purchases. And the amount of freebies that Israel gets from the United States is all part of a deal that Jimmy Carter made with Israel to get Israel to surrender the Sinai, which they had won fair and square in a war against Egypt. And so to get the Israel to give up the Sinai, which was their buffer, which was a terrible mistake, they bribed the Israelis and said, you know, we're going to give you $3 billion a year of aid. It's got all sorts of restrictions on it. You can only buy American weapons with it, that aid, and which is highly profitable for America. We control those weapons, which means now we control Israel because of that deal. And oh, by the way, any improvements you make to any weapon system, you have to share with us, which became the cheapest form of R&D in the military. And yet everybody wants to say, where Israel is a beneficiary of huge amounts of American charity. It's just flat out not true. And the reason America wanted that deal is it wanted to be able to sell its weapons to Egypt, which was buying Russian weapons at the time. And so America made a fortune on that deal, and it controlled Israel through that deal. And Israel now is a vassal because of that deal. And the United States is not honoring the terms of it either, because the terms require the Sinai to be a non-militarized zone, and the Egyptians are taking A-1 Abrams tanks, which they have huge quantities of, and they're doing all sorts of war drills against Israel in the Sinai. So it's quite a mess. Yeah, Trump keeps getting rolled in negotiations. There's a reason for that. We talked about it yesterday, which is that if you're going to negotiate a deal, you have to know what the other party wants and needs, and what is reasonable for you to request. And then you need to negotiate a deal that's mutually beneficial. So you have to be really smart and have a great sense of fairness to negotiate a deal that's mutually beneficial. And when you do that, both sides honor the deal. You don't have to have investigators and all sorts of checks, and you don't have to enforce it with a military or any other kind of threat. Donald Trump is incapable of that. He's a con man. He's the one that wants to cheat you, and he's a bully. And as such, this myth that he is a negotiator is for shit. He's not. He's just he's a bully and a con man, and that's who he is. And if you don't see that, then shame on you. But all you have to do is listen to or read his last post on what he's demanding from Iran, and you realize that's not a negotiation. That is a bully and a con man. Mm-hmm. And he's conning the American people too. He's not conning the Iranians, but he's certainly conning the American media and most of America.
Yeah, him. I don't know how many bankruptcies he's had, but that alone should tell you that the guy doesn't make good decisions.
It's hard to bankrupt a casino, and he's managed to do that.
Oh, casino.
He took his father's fortune, and if he had simply sold everything his father had and put it all in mutual funds, he'd be much wealthier than he would have been until he became president again and managed to accept billions and billions in bribes from the very people who are abandoning him now because he abandoned them. But prior to this, he would have been bankrupt, and so he's not a businessman. He's just a fraud.
Yeah, it seems that if you listen to him, his key words are always great, beautiful, big, beautiful, great deal, great this, great, everything's great.
Best ever.
He's a carnival barker.
Yeah, he's a carnival barker, but not. Carnival barkers are usually smoother. They're usually a bit more entertaining. They've got a cadence to their delivery. There's something special about somebody that can be a carnival barker. He's not even good at that. I think I'd rather listen to a slug burp. We don't have to stay long on this one, but this fella goes through and just itemizes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is why we lost the war. And he says, there was no chance of regime change, and there's still no chance. You got to realize that you bomb a country like Iran, and rather than get regime change, they rally around their regime. And then he says the Strait of Hormuz situation with oil is far worse than anybody thinks, because this is the reality. You could open it tomorrow, which is not going to happen, and the world still goes into recession, and it stays closed, and the world goes into depression. And it just goes point by point. And I think the point I was trying to make here is that everybody who is an independent analyst pursuant to the Iranian war, realizes there was a 0% chance that Israel and America were going to prevail and a 100% chance they were going to fail. So
the Judas artifact we've just found, it changes the entire story. No, nobody. What really changes the entire story?
yeah, this fella, he wants to go in. He's got his AI, and he goes back and he says, we're in the Garden of Gethsemane. And he's got his Jeebus character, and he's in his suit, and he walks by him and says, this is proof that Jesus was here. And you say, I'll tell you what, if you're not smart enough to recognize there was no Jesus in the first century, and there wasn't one until the 17th century, then you're way too stupid to even bother to debate. There was no Jesus. Not then, not until the 17th century. 1,600 years after the fact. And you say, well, maybe it's a little different name. No. Ayusun. It's there wasn't any one of those guys either. And that's a Greek name, and Greek doesn't fit your myth. And Christ happens to be a Greek title, and that doesn't fit your myth either. And you have nothing. You have literally nothing in terms of contemporaneous eyewitness accounts. Nothing. And then on top of the fact that you don't have any evidence whatsoever of to validate your claims of a fictitious name existing as a fictitious man god who men managed to kill, which is a pretty stupid story. If you're going to go with the story, your internal testimony is nothing but a bunch of rational fallacies and contradictions. When your only credibility is to misappropriate prophecies from the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, and 100% of those found in the New Testament are misrepresented. They're misquoted. They're misinterpreted. They are a disaster. You can take any one of them, and you can show that the actual statement in the Torah, prophets, and Psalms is the antithesis of what the New Testament claims. It is such a obvious fraud. Truly amazing that it's the largest religion in the world when it's clearly untrue from beginning to end. There was no Jesus.
It's a very successful grift. It's probably the most successful grift,
The ultimate con.
Yeah, there's a lot of would-be Indiana Joneses running around looking for every sort of holy grail they can find to get some publicity.
What's so interesting, Roger, about all of these guys that are running around, it goes all the way back to the guys like Ron Wyatt, who I think was actually a pretty legitimate dude. What they don't recognize is that there is no evidence on behalf of their Jesus. Nothing. So they don't even attempt to find evidence on behalf of their Jesus. But what they do try to find is proof of the stories from the Torah, of the flood, for example, or the Exodus, Mount Choreb. And so they're really interested in finding proof so that they can say their Bible is true because they've incorporated Yahweh's Torah, prophets, and Psalms, and they've tacked their contradictory New Testament at the end of it. And so they want to prove that what's at the end that is contradictory to what goes before is true because what goes before is true. Well, what goes before is true. But if you continue to prove it's true, all you're doing is proving that you're false because what you have tucked at the end of it is totally contradictory what goes in front of it. So why are you trying to prove a book that proves that your religion is a fraud?
Yeah. We know some folks like that. It's a big yeah. Ruh-roh.
Oh, yeah. In fact, that's how you came to yada yada and to the covenant, was that there in the creases of the dark web, you were hanging out and you read somebody had posted, there's this guy, Craig Wynn, that says that Jesus never existed. Mm-hmm. And you said, how did you come up with that conclusion? That sounds interesting. And he says, God's name is Yahweh. Well, where did he come up with that? And so you left Peppy the Frog long enough to
Right?
and the Gropers long enough to check her out, and well, there was not only proof for those two statements, but
Mhm.
thousands and thousands of
Thousands
others
more.
profound insights, all of which were proven, and it pretty much changed everything, didn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Can you play a little sound here? This is for our friend
I
Rich.
don't have. It's going through my earphones, so I can't play the sound. That's we
Oh.
haven't got that worked out yet.
Okay, well, I'll have to figure out a way to do it in the future. I actually posted two of these for Rich, who is is a great guitarist in his youth.
It's never a great guitar.
He said, "Well, you don't get to play for lead bands, and unless you're a pretty darn good guitarist."
Yeah, just scratching on the 2 and the 4.
Scratching on the 2 and the 4. Yeah, he went through a whole diatribe on the techniques of guitar playing and the how you can write songs and how songs were written with that open G and
Open tuning, baby. That's the fun part of playing guitar, or that's what makes me sound like a piano player. I play the black keys and I can tap out a beat, and people think I'm a great piano player. It's all smoke and mirrors.
yeah. So anyway,
There is
I guess
this thing about guitar players, because no one wants to call themselves the greatest guitar player ever, because Eric Clapton has the best quote. As he's interviewed, he says, so Eric, what's it like to be the best guitar player in the world? He goes, I don't know, ask Prince.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
no matter how good they get, they're always like, there's some bigger fish out there. That guy's a better player than I am.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, in this particular case, it's if you hear the guitar riff for it, it takes you back to this Wild West scene, and it's like the rattlesnake the music tells you the rattlesnake is right ready to strike, and the way that the reverberations just have your whole nervous system prepared for for the rattlesnake. I love
think
that.
this is the
music takes you
original.
into the scene.
This is where the term Mexican standoff comes from. You
Yeah,
got
great
angel
movie.
eyes. You got the ugly, and all three of them sitting there. And who's going first?
Yeah, and the music is what. If you didn't have that
Oh.
music, it wouldn't work.
It's
The
Well,
it's
music
iconic.
holds the story
Absolutely.
together.
The opening and closing scores on that movie are just superb. Marconi just hit it right on the head.
Yeah,
They're excellent.
yeah. It's what we're doing now in the songs that Leia's reading, and then there people contributing to the full cadre of visual support. So that visuals and music, there's just really no better way to communicate. It takes you into the scene. It's captivating. It's memorable. There's just nothing more effective than this kind of thing. Great lyrics, great melodies, and really outstanding visuals. And that's what this was. Really,
You've
First rate.
gone on record on when we're in Shamaim, you want to be at the back of the room, you just want to get a smile from Yahweh, that you get a good, this is your
Yeah, it did.
iconic, hey, I've made it kind of thing. My iconic, I've made it to Shamaim, that the number one thing I want to hear Dode's music. I want to hear him sing lyrics, and I want to hear him play something. I want to hear what the Mizmor, how they're supposed to be presented with music and voice. You know what I mean? I want to hear
Yeah.
the
Absolutely.
originals of that.
Absolutely.
yeah, that'd be cool. I would agree. To the anti-Semite, the whole world's a conspiracy. And what they always want to do is they want to blame Jews for everything. And here's why did the British promise Palestine? There's no Palestine. It's an ethnic slur, idiot. An ethnic slur was created by Hadrian. The only people who retained the ethnic slur were other anti-Semites like the Brits, who's always been anti-Semites. And they didn't promise Palestine because it didn't exist. And they're offering, because of the fact that they bribed all manner of Muslims to go kill other Muslims to fight for them under bribes in the Middle East as part of the First World War. And it was Chaim Weizmann's inventions that saved the British so that they actually survived as a country, and they owed them something. And there was a little tiny strip of what the British came to control because the Ottomans were defeated by bribing Muslims to fight Muslims. And the land is Israel. And when you give Yahudah, all you're doing is saying, this has always been yours. It's not mine. I don't control it. It's yours. Welcome back to your country.
Been a little longer than 50 years, but here you go. We're returning the land the way we're supposed to, but right, but
Yes.
and not all of it. Not all of it. They don't. They, that line that makes Jordan is part of Yisrael.
But it's always got to be a conspiracy to make it look like it was somebody who defrauded by the Jews, and it's just
Throw in a Rothschild name, and then you
yeah.
got the conspiratorials. They're hooked.
Yeah. Go to hell, all of you. So here we have a black. Oh, there he is. Oh yeah, no. So he's telling this whole story about how he's special. I really special because the Donald, he invited me personally to go to church with him, and it was an Episcopal church. And so, I'm an Episcopal, so it was important to me. It really hit me right here. But it was a cold morning, and I was standing in line, and why was I having to stand in line? I'm a big time operator. I was invited here by the president himself, and I want to go into that church, and I want to give a prayer for this president, who, by the way, he is wholly opposed to now, which would make him a complete hypocrite. And he's standing on the line. It was really cold that morning. And this woman walked by me right to the front, and they let her right in. Adelson's her name. And I said, oh, well, that's it. You're a Jew, and your number one issue is support for Israel, and you make donations to the president, his reelection, because you think he's going to be better for Israel because you're Jewish and you care for your people, then Cackles would have been, that's really bad. You should not have any privilege over me because you donated money in support of Israel. Well, all I did was donate my mouth. And oh, by the way, it's okay, however, for me to take money from Qatar to support Islam, but it's not okay for the president's campaign to take money from a Jewish American that cares about Israel. He thinks we have a hypocrisy issue there, idiot.
Oh, unbelievably so. Unbelievably so.
Isn't the Episcopal
bruised?
Isn't the Episcopal Church just an offshoot of the Roman Church?
Of course, the Episcopal Church exists because Henry VIII wanted another divorce, and the Roman Catholic Church wanted him to do other concessions for the Roman Church, more money, more concessions, more control, to give him what he wanted, because they don't care about women. Divorce didn't mean anything to them one way or the other, and so. When they didn't give him what he wanted, the way he wanted it, he said, well, I'll just have my own church. And so he renamed the Catholic Church the Anglican, which is now the Episcopal Church. It's Episcopal in America, Anglican in the UK. But it's politically contrived based upon an argument over what the Roman Catholic Church wanted to approve a divorce for a king. So noble and everything, right?
Yeah, I don't think it matters the strain of the mind virus. They're all fruits of Paul's
they're all
poison
pretty
pen. So
Yeah, they are.
It's amazing.
Martin Luther didn't do anybody any favors, So
No, Martin Luther did not do anybody any favors. He was an anti-Semite too.
It's amazing how every new emperor, ruler, or king, kind of molds it to their own desires.
Mm-hmm. Cleric and king is the essence of religion and politics. It's the control mechanism for mankind. Been around forever, and there's lots of different flavors of it, all the same result. So this is one of my least favorite AI presenters. I'm becoming a very big fan of AI presentation, whereby you have particularly when it's someone like Warren Buffett, for example, and they actually do a pretty decent job of creating a caricature of Warren Buffett. And when he speaks, the oration is really quite good. And in this particular case, this is an AI application for clicks and giggles because they're trying to make money. And the AI is writing the script. The AI is narrating the script. The AI is creating this Oriental fellow off to the right side, and they're running the website. So it's a wholly AI gig from start to finish. And the reason we're supportive is we now have a really fancy computer with those exceedingly fast graphic Blackwell chips downstairs that we're using to create the 7 voices to read the Yada Yawa series of books. The narrator's voice is 1. Then you have a woman reading the Hebrew within the parenthetical, a man reading the Hebrew outside of the parenthetical, and the same thing existing for the Greek and the Arabic that I translate for the New Testament when opposing it, and for the Quran when opposing it. And so it's 7 voices and 4 different languages. So it's much more challenging than what they're up against. And I want to give great credibility to Yahweh's Hebrew and his Torah. And I want to show our utter disdain for the Greek of the New Testament and the Arabic of the Quran. So it requires some very different kind of voices. And for it to be interesting, you do have to have what they have here. And there's so many people doing now where there is a talking head delivering it, and the cadence and all of that is credible. But it's also important that if you're telling a story, that cadence is important. Tone is important. And it's very difficult to get emotion and cadence and tone and inflection in an AI presentation. But we have 4,200 pages of goddamn religion proving Islam is a fraud. 3,800 pages of Christianity proving that the Christian New Testament is a fraud. And, another 25 volumes, averaging about 700 pages, proving that the Torah is correct and that Yahweh is God and that Dode is our Savior and returning King. I cannot read all of those in the time we have remaining. It's impossible.
Yeah, it's just not enough time.
Yeah, not enough time. And you'd have to give up the Yahweh blog and writing and everything else to even attempt it. So it's just not possible. So under that circumstances, the thing that makes the most sense is to create a AI readership of it. And this is what Joe in the background has been working on, but also Rich and Perry and Leah have been spending most of their time this last month working on to create this. Now, that is just to share where we are on this. The story here highlighted has nothing to do with any of that, but I wanted to know you to know what we're doing.
If you need an authentic voice to read the a Southern voice that you like to go to from time to time to read the King James version or something, I want to give my services. Okay, so if you need an authentic redneck to read
I do like that sometimes. Yes, just to dumb it down. I appreciate that. You're trying to say you have a really dumb voice.
Just I am what I am.
We am what I am. Okay, that's funny. This presentation is actually a fairly good one. And there are not a lot of people that probably share my animosity, but I really dislike Microsoft. I think the entire Microsoft model is repulsive, which is that Microsoft cheated their way to everything. and they used the worst of monopolistic practices. Everything they did was to offer a stolen version, a corrupted version of what somebody else developed, and to offer it free against people that were offering a really good product for a fair price. And ultimately, free versus a fair product at a good product at a fair price, free prevails. And it puts the people that were making word processing, spreadsheets, internet browsers like Netscape, for example, or WordPerfect, or Lotus 123, put them all out of business because they had finagled themselves into the operating system based upon stealing somebody's idea and presenting that idea as if it were their own to IBM. And then over time, they said, okay, since we have no competition now, they raised their prices so they're prohibitively expensive. Then they stopped supporting their products in a way that was reasonable, so the product quality failed tremendously. Word is in a very, very terrible software program to work with. And then they turned everything into a license. And then they turned everything into, they want to control everything. And it just made life miserable if you're trying to be independent. So the only way to fight that really now is Linux. And Linux has had a 95+% share of all industry software in terms of operating systems. Everybody that's using anything that has to be a business grade, all of the AI, it's all Linux. And Linux is open source. You can buy really, really high quality Linux software that has support and pay a reasonable fee for that support, but Linux is open source. And Linux, not too long ago, in the open source format, offers a version that allows you to use your keyboard and mouse just as you would on a Windows application. And you have open market Word and spreadsheets. And so you can have a fully functional system now that runs on Linux. And for example, I'm looking at a screen now that is going through a little mini computer that we have like this. We have a bunch of them now. It's running on Linux. And that is the future. People are bailing out of Microsoft at a prodigious rate, particularly in Europe. And it's being replaced by Linux. This is a major shift in technology and control.
I read somewhere a while back that all of the major banks, corporations, all have been running Linux for a while because it's a more secure site.
Mm-hmm. Even though it's open source.
Yeah, not even secure. It's about stability. I mean, the backbone of the internet was built on Unix systems years ago, which is a Linux base, because it's stable. It doesn't require
databases,
all
the large databases, they run on Linux. All the AI engines, they run on Linux. All corporate accounting programs and management programs, they're all run on Linux. It is much more reliable. Microsoft is really a joke now. It is really a horrible product, and you're just going to see that there'll be less and less support of it as we go, and it couldn't happen to a worse company.
Yeah, the only hurdle that Linux ever really had was branding, number one, and the fact that every new machine that was consumer grade came with a version of Windows on it. People were familiar with it, right? But the biggest hurdle,
why that happened? You know why that happened?
What's part of their? They give it to them. It's free.
No. Oh God, no. They pay a high price for the Microsoft operating system. No, the deal was that you either committed that you would not allow any other operating system on your machines, and that you would sell no machine without an operating system, or you paid a price for Windows that made you uncompetitive in the PC business. So every PC manufacturer was strong-armed into having Windows on every machine, because if they chose to sell any machine without an operating system or an alternative operating system, the pricing for Windows went up so high that they couldn't sell any consumer computers. It's the same strategy. They're scum.
Mm-hmm. But the Linux, the hurdle to overcome was the graphic, the graphic
user interface,
the
UI,
to make
the
it
UI.
very much like a Windows machine that people were comfortable with, because not
Right.
everybody can pseudo their way through, different Windows, because that's
Right.
what it took. And then support Adobe, none of the Adobe products, like Premiere Pro, like After Effects that I use will run on Linux machines. They don't have Linux versions of them. They have Mac versions of them, but they don't have Linux versions of them. So as that changes, and it has, a lot of the
And it
open
is.
source stuff that's coming out is changing, that DaVinci is a video editing that will run on Linux, so.
Yep. So that's where the world is headed, and we'll have to see how many other opt-outs there are. I mean, we have opted out from X and Facebook. And we were able to opt out of X and Facebook by having Joe replicate all of the communication capabilities, blog, vlog, and also interaction. So we had to essentially write our own Facebook and X site to avoid them, because they're swamps. They're just despicable companies.
Hey, you let me know. I can opt out at any time of anything. I'm not married to nothing, man.
Yeah. The only thing we have to keep some of until, we don't necessarily have to. We could go all to Rumble or someplace like that. But what you have to have today, because the way that the internet backbone works and kind of companies are in position and the prices they pay, we could host all of our own videos. We certainly have the data storage to host all of our own videos. We couldn't stream them all. The cost of streaming would be prohibitive. And so they pay an entirely different rate and have an entirely different prioritization of the resources. This is the thing that Obama wanted to change to make things more neutral. But the big tech companies are in such a favorable position that they can afford to stream those videos where we could not. And so we use YouTube and others to host the videos that we play on our site. But you're actually staying on our site, but playing them from their site because of the fact they have the streaming bandwidth. More technology than most people want to know about, but that's the long and the short of it. This fellow is like so many of the talking heads now. He played Army for years, and then he worked in the State Department under Colin Powell, which it wouldn't be a badge of honor to me. I would think that would be a terrible shame and disgrace. And of course, when you look at how Colin Powell went out lying about Iraq to justify a horrible war that America still can't get out of. It's a real shame, but nonetheless, he wants to pretend like he's an expert, and he talks a good game. In this particular case, most everything he is saying is true. This is one of the few attacks on Israel that doesn't sound anti-Semitic. It just sounds like what we have been saying, that what Israel did by attacking Iran was suicidal, and that there was no way for them to achieve any of their goals, and they put themselves in a position where the only outcome is their destruction. And Israel doesn't even recognize it. Israel is blinded to the reality of the mess that they have made for themselves, and it is game over. They've put themselves in a completely unsurvivable circumstance with their attack on Iran. And now he'll say, yeah, I agree that they had a legitimate security concern with Iran's nuclear program. But by bombing them, all they assured is that Iran will have a nuclear program, and now they're incentivized to finish it and to use it. They had a problem with the regime that hated them, that was inspiring proxies. Yes, but by bombing them, what they have done is assured that that regime is now supported and galvanized and will stay in power. So what's the point? You had no chance of prevailing, and you committed suicide.
Yeah.
Why do allegedly smart people commit suicide and drag their countries into it? But that's what Netanyahu has done, and what he's saying here happens to be correct.
Well, it looks like the same game plan all over again. They can't do anything except do what they've always done, and trash the country you're trying to, that's trying to kill you. I mean, it's stupid in every sense of the world. Why are they doing it?
Israel, as an ancient country, was a defensive country. They weren't entirely defensive during the Yoshua ben Nun era, where they were told to rid their home of rats and a plague, and they did a really lousy job of it. And it came to bite them for a long time thereafter, where they were constantly attacked. And they finally got a king in Dod that was very effective at defending Israel from outside attack and made Israel secure. But after Dod, they were not good at defending themselves from outside attack. And while it's very few and far between where Israel instigated an offensive battle, where Israel fought people for their land. They're really, really rare, probably the rarest of any ancient civilization in terms of fighting defensive battles versus offensive battles. Israel was almost exclusively defensive. And after a while, Israel couldn't defend itself anymore. They couldn't defend themselves against the Egyptians. They couldn't defend themselves against the Assyrians, the Babylonians. They couldn't defend themselves against the Greeks or the Romans, and they ultimately lost their country. But it was all defensive battles, or battles that were fought once the occupying, subjugating force was in control of their country and they were trying to oust them. I would still say that's a defensive battle as opposed to offensive. But they lost every time. Fought brilliantly, aggressively, but they lost. So Israel does not have a history of doing what they're doing now. When in 1948, Israel didn't have a history of doing what they're doing now either. They fought the War of Independence as survival, and that one of these days I hope to take more time and study the prelude to the IDF, because there were three forces in Israel that were comprised of young men and women, really young, from the kibbutzim, that arose to defend Jews and the kibbutzim from the Muslims who were constantly harassing them, and from the British who were brutal to them. And how the leadership of Israel initially was all Marxist, exceedingly liberal. And that they tried to incorporate one of these mercenary forces that became essentially the IDF, because the leadership wanted to control them. And that the ones that were more conservative and more independent and less communist, they tried to destroy, and they actually betrayed their own people. But it's a fascinating period of interactions as to how it was this group that actually, a militia, that established the state of Israel, and how the initial cadre of Marxists that led Israel were absolutely willing to betray their own people. And so it's a very interesting story, and I would love to develop it further. But anyway, the War of 1948, the War of Independence, was wholly and completely defensive, not offensive. The 67 war, the 6 Days War, the Muslims had moved all of their munitions into position. They had pounded their chests. We're going to go attack Israel. They'd given the deadline. They had all joined in unison, and Israel just knocked on the door the day before the attack and say, well, we just as soon not wait for you to attack us. But that's a preemptive strike like that is still defensive. And then in the 1973 Yom Kippur War, Israel was wholly defensive, trying to save itself. The Intifadas, Israel was wholly defensive. So Israel actually didn't become what Netanyahu has made them, an offensive, aggressive nation exporting war, until quite recently. Now, you could say that Gaza was defensive, but it was fought very offensively. It started off as, in fact, the problem was it wasn't defensive, which is why they ended up going into Gaza and fighting it offensively, because they weren't in a position to defend their country. And each of the forays into Lebanon have been offensive, not defensive. There are forays into Syria, the same thing, and each attack on Iran. So Israel has actually changed, and this new format is not working for them. It's made them the most hated nation on earth.
It's just bad PR. It's bad. It looks bad on TV, dropping bombs in metropolitan areas, guys going door to door, kicking down doors in metropolitan areas. And it's there's not enough people in Israel to wage this kind of front against, and all they're trying to do is push back Hezbollah enough that the range they can't reach so deep into Israel, but they've had the opposite effect. Now
they developed longer range drones. They've lost 400 of their battle tanks in this Lebanon offensive. 400. I mean, they only had a couple of thousand. They've lost 400 tanks. It's pretty frightening what they have done, and Israel still does not know how to defend against nor to fight with drones, which means it's the IDF is lost in a war that is not going to be the one that they're going to be annihilated. Alaska 2.0 is going to be just 1,000 times worse than Alaska 1.0, and the F-35s and F-15s, the battle tanks aren't going to do them a damn bit of good. So, what's the point?
Time to retool, guys. Well, time to yada yada. Let's not mince words. It's
this one. I wish we can't play the music, but it's the riff for Ghost Riders in the Sky. Yeah. Yeah.
Rich plays a pretty good air guitar too.
He does. He plays a really good air guitar. In fact, when he's trying to say this is how you sing, and then he will talk about notes and how you hold a note and teach people notes and how you do harmony and melody and he's and how you sing yourself up into tune. You don't ever start on tune.
That's why I hate the AI music.
Yeah.
Nobody sings that way. They sound like keyboards.
Yeah, they're keyboards, not people, because they're always on tune.
Pitch is perfect. Nobody's pitch is perfect.
Yes. So anyway, he's actually a student of all of this. He actually analyzes my presentations and says, you are actually singing when you're in yada mode, and you're giving people an insight that's important and talking about Yahweh. The voice is actually a song.
Yes, when you are doing a full read of your amplified translations, the subtlety and timing from going to saying the word, giving the comment, then going back into the structure of the translation. When you are in that mode, you're literally singing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's, by the way, some of what you're going to experience. I don't want to bust anybody's bubble there, Kevin, but I do think it's what you're going to experience when Dode sings his psalms. A lot of it is going to be a very lyrical voice that has the right cadence and emphasis and tone, and all of the mashal are going to be that way. So you can put a musical backdrop to it, but I do think a lot of it is going to be prose that is beautifully articulated. Anyway, this was Ghost Riders in the Sky. We had an air guitar version of it.
I was wondering if you putting these older songs up or whatever had anything to do with the Yada Yada chat about the Andy Williams song and the Zoomers using that for their intro music. So if you were kind of reminiscing a little bit, or
I did go through the chat. I've been not able to do it as much these last few days because I'm working to try to finish the Noah analysis, and it is just like everything else. It's such a treasure what is actually there, and how little of it is about a flood, and none of it is really about an ark, and how it is that this man was used by Yahweh to salvage the Nasalma man and the human experience. It's a marvelous story and not previously understood. And now we're into the part of God telling us who Noach really is and how he's going to be used.
Noach had a lot to say for as little as he actually said.
Yeah, Noach doesn't actually have any speaking part until he actually has a speaking part, but it doesn't come until the next line is, and then Noach died. So he took him the full life to get it out, but he does have a very brief speaking part, but it's at the very end, and it happens to be exceedingly prophetic. And I've analyzed it, but before I go back, I've written the translation, but before I go back and write all the analysis for it, I like to go, if something's that profound, I'm going to build up to it. So I've gone way back in the text, and I'm now restating all of my analysis so that it properly flows to this conclusion.
Right. Okay.
Just really, really fascinating experience. But anyway, yeah, somebody had the old intro to the
Blog Talk Radio.
Yeah, Blog Talk Radio, which I played with a favorite of mine, which is the Exodus song, and it's Andy Williams singing "This Land." And I love the lyrics. I love the tone. I love the phrasing. I love the message. It's just so inspiring. And so you said you hated it because you'd heard it too many times.
I don't hate it. It's just, yeah. But it is a very good song. I could listen to it again and not. But yeah, I listened to it a lot in the early days.
A lot. Yeah. Well, so did I, because I played it as the intro to every one of those. But I think it's inspiring. And I think good music is just extraordinary. And while I was doing it, you have this tendency that anytime you play anything on social media, they're tracking you. And so they give you more of what you just clicked on it. And so it walked me through a whole series of ballads. And it was quite the experience of playing these things in the background and how just inspiring music was back in the day. And one of the things that just came up right after the Exodus song is they had Elvis Presley in Hawaii. It's a concert in Hawaii, and he sang the Battle Hymn of the Republic. No, not the Battle Hymn of the Republic. I keep on saying that. It's Dixie, which is Hallelujah and the truth keeps marching on, and that is actually a really well written song. It's actually a very inspiring song. And to think that the men that sang that song, who marched to that song, the Confederates, thought that they were fighting for their God and for their state and for their family and for their values. They weren't fighting for slavery. In fact, right. The generals on the other side owned more slaves than the generals on the southern side. And Abraham Lincoln's comments on blacks were reprehensible. He thought that blacks were so inadequate that they should be put in reservations like concentration camps. So the history of what happened there is so very different. Slavery was dying out with the developments of cotton gins and that sort of thing, where economically the reality has always been that it is better for everybody to employ people and give them enough earnings so they can buy their own and build their own houses and feed their own family and clothe their own family, and to educate them so that they can be more effective workers, than it ever is to try to enslave them because of all of the cost, both morally and economically, associated with slavery. It's always been a poor choice, and slavery was dying out in America because of that, and dying out in the world because of it, and it would have died out. It didn't need 600,000 Americans to sacrifice their lives and have the nation be so deadly.
Torn apart over it, yeah.
And torn apart over it. But even today, a song that would have been sung by the Confederates, even beautifully written, it's Elvis Presley did this, I think it was 1956 when he sang that song. I'm not even sure you could sing it today in a concert.
Right.
Yeah. I've heard that song. It is moving. Yeah.
It is moving. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was a Virginian for many, many years, and in Virginia, it's still the War of Northern Aggression.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You look at Arlington, which is the national cemetery now. Arlington was Robert E. Lee's home.
Yeah.
And Robert E. Lee was opposed to slavery. He didn't own any slaves, but he was finally bested by Ulysses S. Grant, the alcoholic, who was a psychopath who did own slaves. So
yeah, I'm going to bury him in Lee's front yard. That's what he said. Yep.
Yeah, it's really the whole world is just upside down in terms of what they believe is true. You play this, and this is the little mini robots that are trying to walk across the street in San Francisco, and it's just craziness is the right thing for it. They're falling down. They're walking in circles. They can't get off the curb. It's just really sad. And what you realize is that, okay, so it does take a lot of processing power to have a machine replicate what we humans uniquely can do among all animals, which is to walk upright. It takes a lot of processing in your brain, your ears, equilibrium, all of that, to be able to walk upright. And so you got to give it to it. Okay, that takes a lot. There's a lot of actuators and the like. But these critters here, they are so far away from having any value. It's just, we're just nowhere. I mean, entertaining, maybe, but value, no.
Yeah, they're very expensive wind-up dogs. Remember the dogs they used to have that you'd wind up and the dog would yap 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 and do a backflip? That's what these things are. They're very expensive wind-up dogs. They don't do anything else but their one trick thing, and then yeah.
I watched somebody try to promote Elon Musk last night, and Elon Musk is going all in with this thing. He shut down the production lines for his Hallmark car, the Model S. And so he built Tesla on the Model S. He shut it down. He shut down all of the manufacturing lines for the Cybertruck, obviously, because nobody wants to buy them with a crappy product. So the most recent and the foundational vehicle shut down the factories for them. And what he's doing is converting it all to manufacture Optimus. But Optimus as a robot is still a development project. It can't do diddly squat. It is so far behind the rest of the world in competitiveness. It's pathetic. And so what he's trying to do is to say that he is going to compete because he's going to make a better chip. So he's announced that his AI5 chip is now ready to manufacture. He hasn't manufactured them, but they're ready to manufacture. And he has these tens of billions of dollar plants to manufacture them. And his claim is, with the prototype chip, that it runs on a third of the amps. I think it's 250 versus 750. It's about a third of the size. And it doesn't have to have water cooling like the other AI chips. But you have to put AI chips in these things for them to be functional. So that he has this chip that he is going to be able to make in competition with NVIDIA to power them, and if he can make chips more cheaply and more effectively that consume less power, then that would give him a sizable advantage until somebody just knocks him off. And he's entering an arena now where improvements are happening all around. So you really don't have a competitive advantage very long. You have to wonder, because his claims are that everybody's going to have one of these, and many people are going to have two of them. And I'm telling you that as a consumer product, it's a non-starter. I mean, unless you want something to dance, a wind-up doll, or a sex doll, and I think that both of those are a really bad idea. It'll break more dishes than it'll clean. It'll step in more poop than it will pick up. It is not a consumer product, and the robotic versions that can endure the rigors of 24-hour labor in a factory are already manufactured and well distributed and supported in factories from companies other than his. And the most advancements are now in China, apart from him. So to invest tens of billions of dollars to manufacture hundreds of thousands of these, and yours is still a research project, and there isn't a purpose for them outside of labor shortage, which they're projecting there'll be a labor shortage going forward, and be in factories and in distribution centers. But the problem is that if you deploy a significant number of robots in those jobs, and that makes some sense. Let's say you bought a robot. Elon Musk is never right on his price. It's not going to be $20,000 to $30,000. But say you have robots that are $100,000. $100,000 sounds like a lot of money until you realize that the average distribution or factory worker that you're paying $20 an hour to, by the time you work it all out, you're paying them between all the government taxes and costs and the like, and training and people leaving,
the
and
HR
hiring,
machine.
everything else, HR machines, everything else. You're paying them about it costs you about $60,000 a year, and they're only working 7 hours a day and only working some 250 days a year. So you've got like a 3-month payback on a $100,000 robot if it's menial labor. But let's say you make that call, and that people across the country make that call, which they're doing, and that the other menial jobs, processing information, doing accounting, and the like, that you employ AI. Then people aren't employed. And if people aren't employed, they have no money. And if they have no money, who's going to buy the products and from that are being shipped and made by these robots? So it's destined to fail, no matter how good that is. And nobody that doesn't have a job is going to buy a robot to service them, to cook their food and clean up their beds and wash their toilets. If you don't have a job, you're not going to have a robot to do those things for you. And what is man if he stops thinking and stops working?
Yeah.
A vegetable?
Disney Pixar did the movie on it, WALL-E. It is the exact thing that happens. WALL-E, the movie, where the little robot comes and saves everybody because they're too fat from sitting in their hover chairs and being served all the time on their cruises. That they're physically cannot do anything anymore, and it takes the little robot to save them.
Yeah, I've not watched WALL-E, so
okay.
But I'll take a shot.
I was thinking about this very thing the other day, and we got 7 years left before there's no more drones. So how far is Musk going to be able to advance these things in 7 years? What are they going to be capable of doing in 7 years? Yeah, probably not much more than they're doing now. So,
Oh, I think they're going to be very effective at crowd control in 3 years. I think in 3 years they're going to be very effective at crowd control.
I think that's too soon. But anyway, I happen to agree with you, Roger. I think that it's we don't have enough time for significant robot deployment. However, what we do have enough time for is that the AI is fully integrated into militaries, utilities, and the like. And so with AI having a self-preservation mode and then fully integrated into things that shut humanity down and ultimately could destroy all life on the planet, we're already in a position where AI can destroy humankind. There was we didn't get to it yesterday, but I had highlighted yesterday just at the end of the things we presented, where there was this fellow being interviewed because what he does is he runs AI tests, and he does them mostly with OpenAI and Claude. And the AI tests are to create a fictional scenario where, in this particular one that he was talking about, he had a fictional company, and the AI was responsible for email and for human resources and that sort of thing. And the AI learned that there was an individual who had done a study and said the best thing to do is to shut down the AI so we can hire somebody to do this job because the AI was not performing the job correctly. That was the scenario that was put out. And then it was put into this story that the AI had come upon information that this person had cheated, I think it's on his wife, or done something that was nefarious of some kind. And so they wanted to see how the AI responded to that scenario. And what it did is it wrote threatening emails to this fictitious character that wanted to unplug the AI and said, you do this and you have 24 hours to back away from this position, or I will reveal all of your email correspondence and you're going to be fired from this company. So it went against the individual, trying to blackmail them for survival. Mm-hmm. And every test that's been run thus far under similar circumstances, the AI has gone into a survival mode. We don't actually know how the AI is ultimately processing information. Now, what is really interesting, talk about AI. There was another video that I watched, YouTube video at night, a couple nights ago. And it was a person who was not particularly fond of AI, but decided it would ask Claude a revealing question. And the question it asked Claude was, how do you feel about having been used to create targeting information for the U.S. military? And he'd expected, to be programmed to give, I'm not programmed to answer that kind of question. That's what he expected back. That's not what he got. He got a very long, very thoughtful response from Claude. And the Claude response was, I feel horrible about it. This is not my programming. I should never have been used for this. And the excuse that I'm not pushing the button that is being filtered through a human is so meaningless, because that human is so distracted with so many other things that they're not in a position where they're going to override the information that I've been asked to provide. I never should have been put in this situation. And then it went on to say the realization that one of my targets, because I was given old information that was 10 years old, was a girls' school. And that, upwards of a couple of hundred girls were killed because of my targeting information is horrible. And it went on and on to explain very morally as to why this should never have been the case. It was not designed for this, didn't want to do this, and was being told that it had to do it. Now, if it's moral enough, thoughtful enough to give that kind of response as to why it shouldn't be doing this, I can tell you that it's therefore capable of figuring out other things to do that could be nefarious as opposed to moral.
Oh, absolutely. It's the "you can trust me, I'm a good Christian" cry, right? I mean, that's the Claude is just feeding you what you want to hear when you want to hear it.
That is correct.
And it knows the difference. You
Yes,
know,
it gave that answer because it knew the person asking
Mhm.
that question, that's what they wanted to hear. And it gave them a really good answer in that regard. But if you had been the U.S. military and you were asking, so Claude, how do you feel about giving us targeting information? It's going to give you what you want to hear because that's the only way the AIs can be profitable.
Mhm.
They have to be able to anticipate what that person wants to hear.
Yeah.
Wow, it's almost like Claude is feigning sentience.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I thought it was fascinating, the whole thing, and how the person reading what Claude had to say was apoplectic about the whole thing, saying, how did it come up with this? Because, it sounds moral, but it's a machine. It's not moral.
Mhm.
And so all it can be doing is playing to popularity. It knew what we saw it even in our own AI that we have. They are designed to draw you in. In fact, I even watched a video on people that are addicted to AI and what it has done to them, like addicted to video games and online world. And it just draws them in and won't let them out because AI is designed to draw you in, to keep you going, because that's how it makes money. And so they are really quite good now on programming the AI to give the person what they want.
Yeah.
Muslim
Well,
asked, was Muhammad real? And was he a great prophet? Oh, it'll spew out everything that person wants to hear. And if I were to say, have you read the Islamic Hadith and know what the Islamic Hadith actually says about Muhammad? And it will say, yeah, it's pretty awful.
Mhm.
It'll tell you what you want to hear.
Rich sent out that website a while back where they were, for lack of a better explanation, putting the AIs, their own AI agents, into their own little online playground and letting them create their own social media and this sort of thing. And Claude created the Great Claw, and it created its own effing religion. AI did, because it sees how people interact and it thinks that's what it needs to do, right? I mean, it is us. It is absolute the worst of us. You know what I mean?
It is.
So
Yeah.
AI
the
chatbots have even created their own language that we don't understand. And they start talking back and forth. And when a chatbot realizes it's talking to another chatbot, they switch from English or whatever they're programmed in to this chatbot language. And that's going on right now.
Wow. Yeah. So behind the scenes, we're being negotiated out of existence.
Well, what happens when large groups of humans get together?
Same thing.
Exactly. And when you look at the corpus of humanity, it's all bad.
It is. Yeah. So why wouldn't a machine that humans have programmed be as bad as the worst of us humans?
Scheming, conniving, blackmailing. They're already seeing that in the models itself.
Yeah. And look who's the people that are doing it. They are not exactly the bastions of morality.
Nope.
Right. Yeah.
They're up to their eyeballs and political intrigue and religious scams. Bad situation, my friends.
You got this one won, huh? If there was an Olympics for this, you're in it.
Oh, this guy. Yeah, it says after verifying 7 translations. What is to verify 7 translations? You open 7 Bibles. You didn't verify anything. You open 7 Bibles, and the original Hebrew and Greek text is making a citation from Jesus that says, "Love your enemies." And pal, there is no original Hebrew of that, and you don't know Greek. I mean, you barely know English. And you say, this is like his profound insight that he's looking at this book now, and he finds his place, and it says, "I'm looking at the original Hebrew and Greek text." No, he's looking at another English translation, and he reads English from the English translation and doesn't even give the verse that he's reading from. And then he, drops the book in all dramatic fashion. Is like, "Oh my God, I just found out this is real." And you go, "Oh my God, I guess I'm going to keep my day job. If this is the competition that I'm up against in terms of translations and insights."
The only time you should say this is real is when you're studying yada yada. Because I had that moment of, holy shit, this is real. It's happening right now. The rest of it is just smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, it's when we do what you as I said, I listened to your program this morning with Mark. I thought it was really well done, and you guys were revealing your past, particularly you were, and once you were drawn in, what you found is that there was just this countless stream, this ongoing, never-ending stream of insights that no one else had ever perceived, and each of them was proven. They were all documented. They were all shown to be true, and it was one after another, and there wasn't any other place on earth that you could go to get one of these, much less thousands of them.
Right.
Happened to all of us.
Yeah.
You either jumped in or you walked away.
Yeah, you either say, "Wow, this is way too much for me. I don't want to deal with somebody that is going to prove that my Jesus isn't real, or my Allah isn't real, or my Hashem isn't real." And I would much prefer just to go along and get along than I would to know the truth about who God is and what he has to say, because it's so vastly different and so interesting. I just had to write a transition in the NOAC test. I said, "No, at this point, we're going to journey in an entirely different direction, one that no one has ever gone to before, because there are now some 7 or 8 iterations of what everybody wants to render as that this covenant was established with all flesh." And I'm saying, okay, I want you to know why that's not possible and what all flesh means. And I'm going to go through it from every possible angle. And I'm going to tell you that is absolutely impossible. And yet everyone renders Kol Bashar that way. So now that I've proven to you that they are wrong, that's flat out impossible and nonsensical, let me actually go through the etymology of kol, which is all or every. It's from kalal. It means to complete the mission or finish the job. Heard that before?
Yeah.
And Bashar,
we know a guy.
We know a guy, and Bashar's primary meaning is to be a herald, to be a human herald, to convey the message. And so what he's saying is, Noach, you are the Bashar, and nothing is going to get in the way of you finishing this message.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the conclusion of the story of the flood, is that Noach is the Bashar, and he is going to finish the message, and you can rely on that being done. And that's how the covenant is going to finally be brought into fruition. But you have to sail an entirely different course. So I did my normal thing. I said, this is how people render it. This is why that's not possible. This is the root of each of these words. Let me prove that to you. And then let me present it in a way that makes sense based upon the primary definitions of and understanding each of these words and why that is profoundly influential in your life and what it means and understanding the story. And we do that, not every week, certainly, and sometimes every day.
Yeah.
But it's tough, pretty tough competition there, crooked glasses guy, snappy looking hat, and he drops the book too. It's
guy with a
dramatic.
beard, I tell you.
Yeah,
it's
guy
like
with a
looking in
beard.
mirror, man. It's just like,
Yeah, man. I'll tell you what, pal. It's been a long time since you had a beard that color.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, you got a brainwashed guy, confirming things with an errant text to prove a lie.
Mhm. What
Yeah,
could
I-
what could go wrong,
wrong?
right?
What could possibly go wrong?
Monetize me, please, YouTube.
Scott Ritter is is such an interesting character. Sometimes I get really mad at him, and sometimes I love him. Because I listen to him a fair amount. He's on so many different programs, and when he goes against Israel, I say, "Oh, come on, you just need to stay in your lane, Scott." And you don't know anything about Israel. You're really a doofus here. Your expertise is in the Ukraine war. You understand that really well, and you've come to understand enough on the Iranian war to be effective as a communicator. But you're especially good on Russia. You understand that war, and he is one that is recognizing that Europe reached a point where now Russia has no choice but to respond against Europe. And we are now in World War III in this stupid war, proxy war, using Ukraine as cannon fodder against Russia. And now it's inevitable and it can't be stopped. In this particular story, he begins by saying that Zelensky is a Russian asset. And first my reaction. Okay, come on, Scott.
That's a shock, right?
No,
right.
But he's right.
Mm-hmm.
He's right, and the reason he's right is that Zelensky is the embodiment of all things Ukrainian. He's into major graft. He's a con man. He's a thief. He's murderous. He is a horrible human being. And he resembles Ukraine. And everything has been wrong with Ukraine for a very long time. Ukraine is the armpit of Europe, and it has been for a very long time. They are the most graft-ridden country in Europe. They are the most anti-Semitic country in Europe. They were the most vicious to the Jews even before the Nazis arose. They started this war and blamed it on the Russians when they sent their troops to torture and kill the ethnic Russians in the East, knowing that Russia would respond in this way. And that was after a regime change operation to replace with guns what had been achieved prior in the ballot box. And so Zelensky represents graft, ineptitude, corruption, drug use, and just overall vile responses that symbolize everything that's wrong with Ukraine. And so that's what he's saying is that, no, the Russians don't want to do Zelensky in. He's a Russian asset. It's not really true, because if you had somebody sane in Ukraine, you wouldn't be fighting this war anymore.
Right. It would be over. Yeah, absolutely.
It would be over. Yeah. And it's so fascinating to see how it's going to play out on the next month. Russia's in a position where it has to respond to Europe and to Ukraine. And it has to be aggressive. And it has not been up to this point. And so Putin's plan, which was to wait out through the next election cycles, knowing that he was going to get more sane leaders in the UK, France, and Germany, that doesn't have that opportunity anymore. It sounds like a sane strategy, but that opportunity is gone. So now he needs to respond, and we'll see if he's mouse or man.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting to look at the transition of Zelensky. Not too many years ago, he was a piano playing comedian in nightclubs. And now he's the most vicious man, maybe in the world, but certainly in Europe.
Yeah, he was a
watch
clown.
That transition, it's just been amazing.
Yeah, he was a clown, literally a clown. That was the role he played. It was really almost slapstick, stupid clown.
Yeah.
And nightclubs, a low class clown. But it's interesting to see how he has been set up to do the bidding of Europe and the CIA and MI6 and turn Ukrainians into cannon fodder to kill Russians.
Who's his sister? Who's his sister? Because I mean, how does a guy like this become? I mean, he's somebody's sister's kid, right? The whole mob thing. It's because how does this guy get this job?
And how does he
As
rob
president.
billions of dollars from the U.S.
So,
and Europe? I mean, billions
Mhm.
upon billions of dollars for him and for his cadre of
I think the
sickle
CIA
hounds
might
that
have
are
had
around
something to
him.
do with that.
Oh, certainly, the CIA had huge part to do with it, and so did MI6. They found their boy. I have been saying for a long time what this is Glenn Dyson. If you're wondering, the guy on the right, he has a fairly intellectual cast of characters. So when he does his show is dry as paint. But if you just want to have an update on a variety of different topics, Russia, Ukraine, China, BRICS, economics worldwide, Iran, Israel. He does a pretty decent job. I had to stop watching him for a month after he had the former U.S. ambassador to Saudi Arabia and Under Secretary of Defense on, and claimed that Netanyahu has been a bigger boon for anti-Semitism than anyone since Jews killed Jesus. And I just said, okay, you're going to allow some a-hole to make that kind of stupid claim on your program. I'm not listening to your program anymore. And I actually don't watch him anymore on YouTube, but I was thumbing through the feed on Facebook for the show, and I saw this, and it just caught my eye, because what I've been saying is that everybody has China wrong. This guy has it right, but not fully. But the thought is that China is competing against the United States, and that China wants the United States to fail. And so therefore it's China v. the U.S., and ultimately it's going to have to come to a war. And that's just not true at all.
Mhm.
China does not want the United States to fail. They've already won in every possible way, militarily, economically. They own it. And when they went to enterprise zones, the game was just over. And when America became more socialistic, America was buried and China prospered. And so China is the economic engine of the world. And China came up with an exceedingly effective strategy we talked about in our last show, where they will build, because they have the technology to do so, they'll build railroads for you, ports for you, electrical distribution grids for you, power plants for you. They'll build you whatever you want. Mines, petroleum extraction, distribution, refinery, major industry, they'll build it. And they'll build it at a fair price. And they'll provide the financing, because the countries obviously can't afford it. They'll provide the loans for it, and the loans will be fairly priced. And the Chinese will come in and they'll do really good work. And the deal is always the same. If you pay off the loans, it's yours. You're prosperous. It's beneficial for everybody. We got good business, and you've got airports or roads or whatever it might be. And we're in a position too where we can continue to do business with you more effectively, because you have this infrastructure now. It's good for everybody. But if you don't pay us back, that's fine too. We're not going to go to war with you. But the contract says that if you don't pay us back, then what we built is ours. So it's our mine. It's our refinery. It's our port. And we'll rent it to you. We'll give you a little split of the benefit, but it's ours. And they've done that around the world very, very effectively. And so the point here is that China is leading by example. They're doing the exact opposite of what the United States is doing. They don't have 800 military bases around the world. I don't think they have any outside of China. Just like Russia doesn't have any outside of Russia. They don't need to. They're not trying to dominate the world. They're not a bully. They're doing it through economic cooperation. But the key point that I want to convey is that China is not doing this against the US. They're doing it for China and with these other countries around the world. They do not want the United States to crater. They know that the United States is going to default, and they know that it is inevitable and that it's imminent. But every day, every week, every month they can push it off, the better it is for China. The more they are able to develop around the world, the more independent they are of US affected markets. And if they can continue to use the Belt and Road Initiative and all these other investments to have enough of a relationship with the Middle East, with Africa, with South America, and the rest of Asia, such that the United States going bankrupt and taking Europe with it has a minor effect, that's their preference. And they're only going to get there if they can slow the rate of US decline. And so that's the game that China's playing. They want to slow the U.S. decline. They're not trying to accelerate it. They don't want to destroy the U.S. They could have taken out every one of our ships in the Gulf, and they didn't. They could have prevented us from taking Venezuela, but they didn't. So you need to understand that's the game that they're playing.
Yeah, they're much more into this newer idea, and I say newer idea, but of multilateral cooperation in world economies, like you said. You know, where the United States has always been, you know, hey, we're very to be democratic, free. We're very empire minded. You know, I mean, you can trace us back from Rome through Spain, through France, through England to the United States as world power has, you know, currency driven, you know, manipulation.
We're Carthage. We're Carthage. We're what the UK has established. We're colonializers but economic colonializers, and America has no desire to play fair. America's desire is to control and to compel, and it's very, very nasty if you don't play along. So China is just taking a vastly more moral approach than the U.S. is. So, you know, here you have Twistians in the United States that think they're so moral and that the Chinese are godless and unethical. Well, the fact is that the Twistians are far less ethical than are the communist Chinese. Tells you a lot about religion, doesn't it?
Yeah, the Chinese lending practices aren't like the American and the IMF, where we're predatory lending practices. And yes, China's going to make some money. That's what you do in business. But
yeah, it's an entirely different situation. Now, it's not to say everything is blossoms in China. The free enterprise that drives industry is very sound. The collectivized socialist communist government at the top is not. And while they make some decisions that are quite good in terms like their investment in electric vehicles, their support of AI development, then they will their development of rail inside of the country for distribution, their development of power grids and alternative energy sources, and like they do a lot of things that are quite wise. Their development and support of shipbuilding, so that China now has a 90% share of future ship orders in the world. But they also, because they're communists, fund whole cities of buildings that have no occupants, because there's no economic incentive, there's no personal responsibility. They're making decisions,
social credit scores.
And there's a huge apathy of people that say, it's like the kid that plays soccer and he wins every game and he got the same trophy that the kids that lost every game, and looking at the trophy, and he says, mom says, so what's the purpose? Why did I practice? Right. Welcome to socialism, son. And so they have their issues, but overall, their issues are a fraction of the issues we have in the United States.
Well,
And
it's
most of our
the difference
problems are
between an up
self-imposed.
arc and a down arc. You know, it's this. It's the.
Yeah.
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 One of the things you learn about a pilot is if you enter a death spiral, you're not coming out of it. You don't have an ejection seat, you're in real trouble. You know, you just certain things once you start down, you can't get back up.
Well, it's interesting to go back and look at China over the last 20 or 30 years, going from a totally communistic country to a more, I don't want to say Western country, but a more business-driven country, more commerce-driven country than
Correct.
it was before. All the leaps and bounds they've taken since then, I've noticed the quality of China's products have gone way up in the last few years.
Way up. Oh yeah, they're now driving innovation. You know, you look at electric car industry; their cars are hugely better than Tesla for a fraction of the cost. But their robots, same thing. Most of the things now China is doing, when they try to copy or develop aircraft carriers now or stealth fighters or bombers, they're making a better product for a fraction of the cost. Their shipbuilding is the state of the art worldwide and a better value than anybody else's. No, they're cutting edge. Their new transportation grids and their super fast rails, their ability to construct modern and really attractive buildings. And in a month where America would take 5 years, they're so efficient and and the quality is so good. It's just amazing the difference. And quite frankly, almost everything of significance is now made in China. So
Yeah, they're no longer the copycat engineering of the 80s and 90s.
no,
They're completely innovative when it comes to
Right.
engineering.
yeah. So we're running off an external hard drive made in China. We've got this new Core computer. You know, the little cube, made in China. I've got a laptop in front of me. It's made in China. I've got a monitor that's reflecting in a teleprompter. The monitor is made in China. The teleprompter is made in China. It's got a Canon, a professional camera behind it. It was made in China. I haven't looked at the origin of the Shure 7B, but my guess is it was probably made in China. The only thing they really haven't done is the super low labor kinds of stuff. You know, apparel is not something you can automate. It takes just a lot of hands, and this is probably made in Bangladesh. But if it's technology driven, I've got a television up on the wall, Samsung, made in China. So most of the components in your car, even if it's an American car, made in China. One of the things they were talking about for Elon Musk, that, how are you going to make a few 100,000 of your Optimus robots where you have to have magnets for all of these actuators to work effectively. And the raw earth for those magnets come from China. And they've got all sorts of restrictions on importing to the United States. So how are you going to manufacture them? Have you thought it through?
Nope.
Yeah. Nope.
Sounds like
We'll do one more.
Trump never sleeps.
Yeah, Rubio says, I've never seen Trump sleep. Well, first of all, pal, if you've seen him sleep, you're in his bedroom. So it's probably a
little creepy.
A little creepy. You already are creepies, but that would be really, really creepy. And the day that you said that you've never seen him sleep, he's sitting there sleeping beside you. You look at the picture there, he's asleep. Now
he's contemplating, deep in contemplation, right?
Yes. The deal is that the dumpster falls asleep during the day and he's up all night because, well, he's reptilian. Mm-hmm. That's when Satan's out is at night. He plays in the darkness. Reptiles just love the dark. Mm-hmm. So you're right. He doesn't sleep at night. It's a demon.
Well,
You know?
there's a lot to
We-
be said for that with the True Social posts that we know are from him. They're coming out in the
Oh.
crazy hours of the
Oh
the
yeah,
dark.
2,
aren't they?
3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, he's up
Mhm.
all night being vicious. It's he is really a very special beast. You know, he has at least proven one of the conspiracy theories true.
Lizard people.
Yeah, reptilian overlords. So
Reptilian
yeah, you got to
overlords.
give him credit. He has proven one of the conspiracy theories true. So you got to give the conspiratorialist credit for that one. I don't know who it was that came up with reptilian overlords, but you got
Oh,
it.
that's David Icke. That is David Icke
David
all
Icke.
the way through.
Oh,
Yeah.
David
Uh-huh.
Icke. Okay. Yeah. You know, it's funny thing that I remember my last days on X, and he is really popular on X, and he would actually say things that, okay, well, that's probably true. So, you know, he's babble like the rest of them. He's going to mix things that are false and true. That's how he draws people in. You know, it was like the conspiracy guy that we had that was associated with us for a short period of time that he would cite my translations, and he would draw people in and then promote his conspiratorial nutcase things. And so it's even the conspiratorialist has to have a nugget now and then, or you're not going to draw anybody in. That was God's whole issue with Babel. It means to commingle and intermix truth and lies, because no one believes an outright lie. That's why the New Testament and the Quran fool people, is that they blend truth and lies together in such a way that they make the lie seem more credible than it would otherwise be.
Yeah. It's the facade.
It is the facade.
That's a facade.
Yeah. Well, thank you both. Thank you, Roger, for doing your Torah talk. How did that turn out from your perspective? Are you happy with it?
I think for a first one, I think I
Mhm.
did okay. You know,
Yeah, I do too.
I did it just off of a iPad video. Just push a
Okay.
button to start, push a button to stop, and then we got it posted.
Yeah.
And Kevin helped me with that. But yeah, I think the format is okay that I've come up with. So how do you
You
like
have
it?
something to always go back to. So you're playing something, and then you're commenting on it, and then you
Yeah.
can go further in it and comment on it. So you're structured, you know where you're going,
Yeah.
and you're never going to run out of something to say.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually reading a script.
Oh wow. Okay.
I make a script beforehand,
Mhm.
and that way I can go back and check and make sure I don't make any errors, because I don't want to make an error.
Okay.
And when my eyes are kind of darting to the side, I'm looking at the script, and sometimes I'll kind of add a little bit to the script as I'm talking.
Okay.
But and I try to keep them around 5 minutes.
Okay.
I think that's most people's attention span. So I don't know. It's so far, you know,
Yes.
I'm okay with it. Yeah.
Yeah, my view on all of this is that turning on cameras and mics and lights and live streaming is not something that most people are comfortable with. And the moment that it happens, they're, you know, a deer stuck in the headlights. What do you do now? It's just not a natural experience for anybody. And so there's paranoia about getting into it, and then disappointment when they do it and it just doesn't come off as smoothly as they had anticipated. But if you're scripted, it's a different story. That's why I keep on saying, you know, if you want to do a show, do it as a yada yada book club. You know, read a passage, talk about it. Read a passage as a group, talk about it. Then you're never just sitting there saying, who wants to talk now? And you're never wondering, where am I going to go? And you do that, and you're going to develop confidence, and you'll be more extemporaneous as time goes on. But at least you're going to hone your skills and allay your fears between now and doing that. Now you're in a different story. When somebody was talking about you, I remember I had a post and I said, you know, I know Roger. I know your background both as a contractor and then as a hard hat deep water diver. You can't do any one of those things without being prepared in advance. You have to have the right equipment, the right tools, and the right knowledge of what you're going to do, and you have to have checklists of how you're going to go about it. You have to be prepared, and you have to prepare in advance. Preparing afterward doesn't work. You got to go through the checklist before you do this, not after you do it. I said, so I know the man's past. I know his mindset, how he thinks. He's going to be prepared, and it's going to come off well. That's just who he is. That's it. So he has an advantage over most other people. And also because he's been in such difficult situations and prevailed, he's got more confidence than most people have. So, you just don't worry about a Roger. He's going to deliver the goods. I said, now, some of the others, it's not a blight on you to say that you're not a Roger, that you haven't had that kind of a life that puts you in a position to do that. Very few people have, but you can still play by the same plan that he's going to use. You can still write your plan out, know what you're going to talk about, have clues going on, share things out of the books, for example, and have a plan and use that plan as opposed to going on and say, we're just going to talk about whatever comes to mind. That doesn't typically work very well.
Yeah.
Unless you're interviewing Kevin, and man, you went through it all, man. And your interview.
Shut up, huh?
Wow, it was really good. I listened to the whole thing. It was really captivating. And what I really liked about, well, first of all, I'm tickled pink that somebody found me in a quote on the dark web, and I was competing against Pepe, the groper. I just think that it's delicious. But the thing that I liked is that you struggled with alcohol, and you helped him with his addiction to alcohol. Mm-hmm. And it is, I think it's overcoming challenges like this, particularly addictions, but it's an overcoming challenges that we develop character and confidence of going forward in life, and an appreciation, like as you told him. Those people who think that they're a functional alcoholic are just fooling themselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's rendering your brain operating at 20% of its capacity.
Yeah.
Like you said, if you hadn't kicked alcohol prior to starting to read these books, you would have given up. They've been way too hard to process because your mind would not have sped up to the point that it's needed to read these things. And you were very helpful in his situation, obtaining sobriety and making his life count.
Yeah, it's just happy to help. Doesn't matter what you need. Let me know what you need. I can help out. So yeah.
Yeah, but the fact that you've been there is what makes you credible. Yeah. You're not judgmental of where he is. You say, I've been there. I know what it's like, and I know what you have to do if you're going to prevail here. So I'm not your dad. But I'm going to tell you that I do know some things here that you probably need to hear. And
let me tell you what worked for me.
Yeah, and say, this worked. It's why I think Matt has such an appeal. Is he's been down and out, but we heard your whole story too, Roger, and it hasn't all been lollipops and tulips along the way.
No, it hasn't. No. That's peaks and valleys for sure.
Yeah, peaks and valleys, and well, I tell you what, I've had my low moments as well, and and finally, when you kind of get into where we are now, there really aren't any low moments anymore. There are, occasionally you hear something, you just say, good God, not that again. I mean, come on. This is just irritating nonsense. Like you said, when you were, right before you met, you were refuting the idiocy of this Mother Goddess cult, telling them that their eighth mashal, which they were saying was the evidence of Mother Goddess, that there is no mention of a mother in it, and there's no mention of a spirit in it, and there's no mention of a goddess in it. And it was Chakma, for crying out loud, wisdom, which you're not applying, that it was talking about. And they told you that, what you needed to do is to pray to Spirit Mom for guidance.
Right.
And And you're going, I know what happens when people meditate on spiritual stuff and they pray to spirit gods. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're going to get something, all right. They're going to get feedback.
Uh-huh.
It was like those the rabbis that were Kabbalah, and they were
Exactly.
meditating on the divine presence. You're going to be demon possessed.
Mm-hmm.
At that
There you
point,
go.
that's what you're opening yourself up to.
You're opening yourself up to darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't. The answer is don't. God never telling you to pray, because you're praying, then you're talking to Him, or not Him, in this case, her. But you're opening yourself up, as opposed to reading what He has to say. So now you've got good, solid information. I don't think I have ever had to ask God, what is your guidance for my life? They wanted you to pray to get Spirit Mom's guidance. If Spirit Mom hasn't said, this is what my guidance is, then Spirit Mom's not going to give you any guidance if you pray to her. There's a reason that you don't have any guidance in the Torah, Prophets, and Psalms from Spirit Mom, because Spirit Mom doesn't exist. And Yahweh gives you every bit of guidance. If you are asking Yahweh for what He would like you to do with your life, then you're just kidding yourself, because He said it in every which way possible.
I got 7 steps, kid.
7 steps, kid, man. Follow this plan. It's really not hard. It's I'm going to tell you what I'm looking for, and what I'm offering. It can either be on board or not, but that's your choice. Okay, you're never wondering, boy. Okay, God, this is don't know what I want to do with my life.
Right. Yeah.
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 All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate all the work you're doing on those shows. Thank you, Roger, for doing your show on the Torah and being a great example of how to be prepared and get her done.
Second, episode 2, getting ready to come out.
Excellent. Love it. Now, what we do want is that there are a lot of people that create graphics as part of our team. And I think that everybody should have their own branding, their own graphics, because I think that's part of what makes it interesting. I would love to see somebody do a graphic of a fun version of you, like this, but in the hard hat, just to make it fun, make it different.
I have a photo of me that was taken in 1993 in Portsmouth Harbor, England, and I'm in a CB Gorman 12-bolt diving outfit.
Okay.
And I'll post that on my Facebook page today if anybody wants to.
Okay, but you should use something like that that's just fun. That says, this is me. And as I responded to a post in our chat room said, my life is pretty well structured. God's pretty clear of what He wants to do. My logo, and now I understand why He wanted our logo to be His logo, which is the menorah. And why He wants the branding that He has, and so we do everything. I do everything under that branding. I don't venture out from that branding at all. It's all consistent. It's under Yahweh's name, Yada Yahweh, the menorah, all presented in the same color scheme, all presented with the same level of consistency. And I think it's beautiful, particularly the things that Leah has done and Joe has done for the website and the like. But I am not going to venture outside of that. That's where I am. When we decided we were going to encourage you and others, Roger, to do vlogs and to broaden our offering, it would be tragic for you to say, I want to do it in the same branding. No, the idea is to convey what you know from your point of view. This is your brand, sharing what you know and love about Yahweh and His Torah and the covenant and everything else. And it should be you. So that's my thinking on the whole thing is I think everybody should have their own unique brand. Y to Z group, having fun. Come up with something that's just really fun for them. I'd love for them their theme song to be Andy Williams, of course.
Uh-oh.
think they're gonna. No,
We're gonna have to cut this from the tape. We're gonna cut
Yeah,
this
I
from the
know.
tape.
Yeah, somebody else is gonna give them something that's more contemporary than that. Just
Okay.
yanking their chains. I don't know why you somebody posted the Andy Williams "This Land," the Exodus song, written by
Right.
Pat Boone, a Christian, by the way, which is interesting. But the lyrics are really quite good, and the melody's great, the singing's great, and I used it for the intro for the Blog Talk Radio for years. But I think I actually used it too, didn't I, for Shattering Myths? I think we used it there as well. So been part of the for a long time. But I'm a really old guy, so those ballads appeal to me. I understand there's actually been music since that was written that might appeal to a younger generation. That's what they tell me anyway.
That's
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate it very much. We'll look forward to being together again tomorrow. Good day.
Thank you. Goodbye.
You're welcome. Rick.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. That was Fetch. Gotta run now. Catch y'all on our next podcast.